just take a moment and talk just before we do another ATM. But I wanted to just take one little moment because to talk about the advantage that we have in the feldenkrais method for helping people make concrete change. So when she was here on the floor, and you could see that within her, she was having to really, what did she have to do within herself to make it so that she could listen to what she did, what pattern kept arising until she could suspend it? What did she have to do? She had to pause. Did she go, gee, I wonder what I'm going to have for lunch today? She had to, and so what did she had to use her own senses to watch the beginning of the habitual, the compulsive, the initial pattern arise. Yeah? And it wasn't just resting. Because it's not just resting with it. There's a profound sense that when the movement begins, and you will see in the next lesson, you'll see how simple, how much it is like this. But that's why I keep asking you guys, what's the earliest moment that you can detect? And the degree to which it's difficult. These questions of finding these ability to detect in the first moment, and then to even have an idea, well, how do we go about detecting? And then evolve what we're detecting so that we understand the basic biomechanical principles. That it's not that we're looking for the ideal, we're looking for the ideal process. We're looking for a process that invites a person to explore for themselves. How do I do what I do? Now, I can tell you that someone who's been a Buddhist, meditating, going to retreat, sesshin after sesshin for years and years and years, still couldn't do what she just did. All the meditation retreats in the world would never get her to the point that Buddhist lying on their mat to be able to find out what they do because they don't have a reference for it. They don't have an internal physiological reference related to functioning. Yeah? Functioning in the world, in gravity, in society, in culture, with family, with friends, with lovers, with husbands, with children. The process, yes, I can be in the meditation and I can inhibit thought from arising and I can do it for a long time. Yeah? Yeah, I have this, I can be in this place where the ego evaporates, my sense of boundaries changes, my sense of openness and oneness changes, and I still stumble when or can't, I still am not more functional. Here we're taking and we're combining the practices in such a way that it also leads to the ability to function. It increases the function. So this is an advantage we have. She has the ability to do something with her attention, to start, to stop, to start, to stop, to start, to stop, or to do nothing at all. Yeah? Or then to convert this into something else. Yeah? This is extraordinarily important to this method, is this ability, and we're practicing. Now, what are we practicing? We're practicing with something that's so concrete and tangible. Starting and initiating movement is concrete and it's tangible. Yeah? It has a sensorial component to it. Now, it's no different, me being able to start and stop a movement, than it is to start and stop a thought. It's no different. It's still the exact same process of observing what's arising. And the thought as it arises has within it a way that I organize myself to complete the thought, or a historical way of working. Yeah. So the advantage to this work, in the work that you won't find, a psychotherapist won't make this change either. The person may come to the place where they have a kind of like Moshe said with Freud. After 14 years, the person might come to a place within themselves where they have a demeanor where they're no longer anxious and they're no longer insecure. They have a demeanor of quiet with themselves. but it still doesn't mean that they can walk across the street or have real elegance or have a profound sense of the kind of quality of movement and of expression or about outwardness that we have, that we can also help people with here. So it's we over the years we've considered this work to have something to do with physical integrity, yeah, helping people recover from injury and move more nicely. But in that comes the whole process of dignity, because Moshe talks a lot about wanting to help people recover their dignity, and he talks about wanting people to recover their health. Now, it's not just to be a periwinkle stuck on a rock. Anybody know what a periwinkle is? Those little black shoots that stick on rocks. Periwinkles stick on rocks, but if they get dislodged from the rock, where do they go? Downstream. Can they get back to the rock? No. They'll find a different rock, but it's downstream. Well, so but maybe it's a bad example, but the thing is that the normal way that we think is that a healthy person is resilient, that they can return to where they were. Yeah. She's trying to return not only to where she is, but to actually be better than she was before. That the process of her learning will give her a sense of her potential that's greater than she was before, even though she'll never have the need that she had before. Yeah? So that her whole sense of self will be far more complete, and that the process by which she's learning will give her a sense of being more complete than she was before. In other words, healthy, where her resources make it so that she's not a periwinkle stuck to a rock. She has the ability to actually swim upstream, yeah, in her life. Yeah. Now, these I think are these are the advantages, but I believe that it's in this very process that we just witnessed. This very clear, concrete process by which something is initiated and it's compulsive. You could see that it was almost in the very beginning without attention. We could watch her. That moment when she made the movement, she did what she had to do in order to reach the outcome of the movement, but it was built in compensation. Yeah? And the compensation has to insert itself for her self-preservation, and it will until there's something better. Yeah? And so what inserts itself has to be so much better that her system will find it more reliable than the old compensation. But what is it that she has to insert that's better? It's not just the movement. What does she have to insert into her life that's better? The process of discovery. The ability to take and find something that's clear, easy, the way it's perfected, and then through that process, then be able to take some piece of that and notice, and then begin to go into the question and have the question keep leading me and leading me and leading me until, I start to find something that wasn't there before. Me as a practitioner, my art was to invite her to help her. She noticed, I could see across the room that she was playing with something that was really important to her. She's trying to solve it. As I watched everyone around the room, everyone is trying to solve these questions, yeah? And she was trying to solve it for herself, but I could see that the speed with which she did it, yeah, kept leading her to the place where, whether she wanted it or not, the speed with which she made the movement led it so that the initial process came up so quickly and was so completely occupied her that it almost couldn't be changed. Now, there's a Buddhist teacher named Buddhasa Bhikkhu, and he says, how many times are we incarnated? It's a funny question. How many times are we incarnated in a lifetime? Or he says, every single time that you're identified with I is an incarnation. Every single moment that I go I, and that means I am this way. That means my preference, the way my skin, I wear my skin, the way I wear my clothes, the way my feet touch the ground, everything that I've come to know, that I identify. And when it's not that way, I question whether I'm okay or not. Unless it's better than what I did before. But so what does he say? How do we keep ourselves from incarnating? He says, just at the moment that I'm about to engage in the activity, I'm saying to you that she can actually catch herself in the activity and suspend it. And she did. She caught herself while she was actually in the engaged motor planning activity. It has already risen. And for the most part, as soon as the motor plan takes place, we go unconscious. We just carry out the motor plan. That's called living out a habit. Habits are engaged before we can be conscious of them taking place. Yeah? That's the nature of habit. Awareness is slightly different than that. Awareness is the state in which we know the habit is arising. We know that we know. We're not just the habit forming. The habit forms before our prefrontal cortex even registers it. And for the most part, the habit is such that the prefrontal cortex is completely turned off to, because we're living out the habit and we're identified ourselves as the habit. So Buddhasa Bhikkhu says, right before the habit inserts itself, right before the moment I say, I can catch that moment with awareness, and I can suspend it. Now, as soon as you're in that place of suspension, you're in a state, this is Moshe's state, the freedom to move without hesitation or preparation. That's the potent posture. That means to be able to move with spontaneity, to meet the moment. Not react, but to meet the moment. It means that there must be a place from which all possibilities can rise. And Moshe says it's real simple. The higher your center of mass, the easier it is for you to fall in every direction. He goes back and forth with these things. Yeah. Buddhasa Bhikkhu then goes back and he says, you can catch the habit or you can catch the thought as it's arising. You can catch I as it's beginning to emerge. You can catch it at the first moment. Now, at the very first moment that it arises, it's already taken place in our nervous system. Because neurologically, our motor plan has already taken place in our nervous system before we can emerge, before we can observe it. Yeah? So it's the question of catching at the earliest possible moment the rising of the motor plan. Because if we couldn't create the motor plan faster than our ability to observe it, we'd have no chance of survival. Yeah. Because how many times you've been driving the car and you've pulled the car back in and you didn't know why? Because the car was there that you didn't know was there, but somehow you took it in and you were. How many times in your life have you preserved your life by just subtly stopping, not knowing, but something in the environment, and then because you have to, for your own survival, be able to make these motor plans for self-preservation before you can observe them. Yeah. So but we also have to have the ability, a good habit is a habit that we can change. Now, Buddhasa Bhikkhu goes on to another state, which is a state that very few people maintain, and I can tell you I don't maintain it, which is the habit never arises. The identification with I never arises. One is simply living in a state of freedom. Freedom from identification with your heritage. Yeah? Now, that's called enlightenment by all standards. And we're not talking enlightenment here. We're talking a bozo here in the class, talking to you about what are the advantages of the Feldenkrais method. The advantage of the Feldenkrais method is in a concrete way we can help people learn how to make choices through their own ability to discern what their experience is. Yeah? Now that to me is the highest kind of work that we can do as human beings. Yeah? Now, this is my representation of the work, and I understand this may not be something that you're particularly interested, or it may not be what you're here for this 2 weeks for. But for the most part, I want to offer this continued process by which, through suspending, and in this moment of suspension, as I said with Moshe, that when we're in this tonic state, when we're not in the historic phasic state, when we're not simply in the compulsive state by habits arising, we can experience a moment of what we can call personal freedom. Yeah? And when she's at that, in that place where she can do this or that, or another thing, then she has a potent posture. Biologically, she becomes, in my estimation, a fit. That's biological fitness. She has within herself then the ability to move in any direction without hesitation. That's a biologically fit person. A person who can explore what they do and then look, this is what I'm doing. Now, from my own observation, is it possible for me to make it so I can do this and that, or this and that, or this, that, and this and that, or whatever it is that we can do. So here, it's hard to say, but I believe, again, these are advantages for us as practitioners. Yeah, that in this moment we provide something that you won't find in meditation. You won't find it necessarily in a yoga class. In a yoga class, oftentimes the teacher will come and they'll be corrective. I don't try to, I mean, maybe I do, but I don't try to do these things in such a way that it's corrective. I want to give a person hints and give them a means and a way, and I want them to have the way that they can study themselves, and then inculcate or engage themselves in the study and have the process available to them, rather than the outcome. Yeah. So, right? Does that make sense as to what we did? Did you see that in action? Did you see that as a process? Okay. Because, yeah. Right. Anybody care to ask a question or make an observation, or I'd like to go on to another ATM if you'd like. So most of the day will be spent in ATM process today, or these kinds of processes. Okay, you all right? All right.